Hi everyone, today in 7th grade Elevate, we are working on writing, graphing, and problem solving with inequalities. So if students were struggling a little bit yesterday after coming back from break and working with equalities, today we will make sure we close some of those gaps. So we're actually going to start out the lesson with a 5-minute we do around a word problem. So it says Paige and Zoe plan to drive 218 miles to Dallas for the weekend. Paige says she cannot drive more than half the way. Write an inequality to show how many miles Paige can drive, then graph the solution set. So, one thing that you might want to do is launch students into a turn and talk. What is going on in this problem? And what does Paige mean when she says that she cannot drive more than half of the way? What kind of symbols would match her not being able to drive more than half of the way? Okay, so then we'll jump into the plan. So this is what is the problem asking you to find? Write an inequality for the number of miles Paige can drive. What do you need to know to solve the problem? Paige and Zoe plan to drive 218 miles. Both of them plan to drive 218 miles, right? Paige cannot drive more than half of the way. And this is the piece that we talked about in our questioning, where it says translate the keywords into numbers and symbols to form an inequality. So some students, based on the turn and talk that they had, should be able to have an inequality statement that they can come up with. So it says use the inequality to graph the solution on a graph/number line, right? Write an inequality and graph its solution. Number of miles can be represented by the variable x. Some students may want to use m for miles. It doesn't matter as long as we're using a variable as a placeholder. And then now we're talking about that language of not more than. Not more than half means that she is fine to drive less than half. She's also fine to drive half. So the symbol that we want to use is the less than or equal to sign. And then we got to figure out what half of 218 means. So we want to divide 218 by 2, giving us 109. So the inequality is x is less than or equal to 109. Now, the misconception that students might have is right here. Students may say x is less than or equal to 218. That's incorrect, because that would mean that Paige is fine with driving less than 218 or equal to 218. That's not true, because she doesn't want to drive more than half of the way. So how can she drive the full way? Okay, so from there, we are going to launch students into 10 minutes of partner practice. They're going to be working on the same set of skills they worked on yesterday. We should see way more success than even yesterday if students struggled before launching them into their 5-minute exit ticket around word problems. Students will have to graph as well as write down the inequality. Also, something to pay attention to, is that students are using the closed or open symbols correctly to show equivalency.